so lucky. Jimese Harkley, who I've had the honor of working with and watching grow a career across our amazing industry. Thanks so much for joining us, friend.
So glad to be here with you. Any chance for us to chat with me is a good way to end the week.
That's right. Brilliant. Okay. Now, as I was thinking about purpose of Third Fork is to answer all the questions that people have and might not know who to ask, might be afraid to ask. And I know in your journey right now, you have some very important humans in your life that you're giving advice to. And so my question for you that I thought we could talk about is, as someone who has had an amazing career and had some early stage journeys like all of us have had, what advice do you give your kids about making early stage career decisions?
Oh my goodness. So I'm the mother of a 22-year-old graduate, right,
How
who
is
has a
it possible? No way.
I know, right? But luckily he chose to live at home, right? So that was one of the
Yay.
first, I think, pieces of advice that I gave is like, hey, this your first salary,
Yeah.
right, will not be this life-changing salary. So your
Oh.
relationship with money has to start not with getting a job where you're going to chase money, but
Mhm.
making life decisions like, coming back to your room at mom and daddy's house.
There's no bias in that.
Well, at least I was leaving. So I'm like, really,
Oh,
it's
that's
just your
cute.
dad and
That's
it's
cute.
small doses of mama,
Yeah.
right? But the whole thing was for him to not set up this relationship with chasing a paycheck and needing money to live, which is a reasonable thing, right? We all need money to live. But I
Mhm.
really coached in being comfortable in a safe environment where he could learn, build, and develop skills, but he didn't need money so
Mhm.
much so he didn't have to make decisions based on money.
Jimmy said such an interesting concept. And I think it applies to the early stage of our career. And then it has implications across the course of your career because if you're living fully into any amount of salary, that does constrain your next choice, to your point.
Oh yeah, it does. And now when you look at rent,
Oh,
or like he's not in a position to buy a home in this situation, but just renting itself can be over $1,000. And if you're anywhere between a 30 to $50,000 range, there's choices you're making. Do you live with people?
yeah.
What does that look like? So I wanted him to be mindful of that.
Mm. How did he receive that advice? That's such an interesting thing to hear from mom and dad. Good.
So what happened when he was going to move out on his own and we were running out of money? Your sister's going to college, we can't pay your rent anymore.
Yeah.
But he decided he was going to live in Tuscaloosa, so he goes to look for apartments. And one day he comes home and says to us, Mom, I met this lady who told me I pulled up in an Audi Q7. I looked at this apartment that she was wondering if I was going to feel safe here, what my parents thought about me living here,
Oh.
and all of these things. And he goes, when she asked me those questions, I started to think, is this the right decision?
Oh, isn't that interesting?
So, we had been saying to him how expensive it was, but we said if you find it, we'll sign with you, but you're responsible. But I wish I knew that lady's name so I
Right?
could thank her for
Golly.
bringing light to my kid who wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah.
But then we did a little we did a little what I call it kitchen table math because we keep a whiteboard at our kitchen table. It's like right behind it. But it's
That's
it's
great.
at the table because like that's where dad leaves early in the morning. I'm gone for long periods of time. So
Yeah.
that's where everybody's instructions live.
Oh, shoot.
So we erased everybody's instructions for the week or the day
Yeah.
and we did a little math with what his income was.
Yeah.
And when he realized he would be at about $1,000 deficit a month, which meant mom and dad had to supply that deficit, that
Oh.
also helped after that conversation. So that's what got him to his bedroom. It wasn't just listening to mama and daddy at all. There was this wonderful lady. There was that kitchen table math that took
Yes.
place. And then there was this aha moment for him just even a couple of weeks ago. He had to
Mhm.
buy a car.
Oh, yes.
because that nice Audi that we supplied him was totaled. Not his own fault. Oh, that's a whole nother story. I'll need another third fork to talk about how the Audi got totaled and why I love my baby so much. It's the it was a scary story, but it was funny in the end, right?
Oh, no.
That's a whole you'll have to invite me back. I'm holding on to
Yes,
that so I can come back.
right?
Um, but he just had to get there. And when he bought his own car, he bought it in his own name,
Hmm.
right? I sat there with him as he signed for it. I was so embarrassed that he printed his name, but I was happy that he qualified.
We don't teach cursive anymore, Jimmy.
No,
That's not a thing. No.
he prints his name. And luckily, I knew the F&I guy from when I worked my first teller job. He worked at the Nissan dealer in front of that. And so he would come in. So it was like family sitting in a room, and we're laughing about him printing his name. But that was a full circle moment. Had
Yeah,
that happened and he'd been in that apartment and he'd had all these bills, he also would have been in a situation.
yeah.
And guess what else this 22-year-old is facing, Tinsley?
Uh-oh.
His job is a federal job. So let's just say federal funding gets cut, right? So when he had that moment of conversation with us, like, Mom and Dad, we just had a discussion today at work that funding for the mental health program that I work in could potentially be cut.
Oh, wow.
I didn't see trepidation in his face. I
Mm,
saw that safety of, I'm
yeah.
glad these things happened to me.
Hmm.
So that his relationship with money was one of the first things that we shored up.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. Jimmy,
Mhm.
when you were early stage in your career, what was a piece of advice that you received that was really helpful?
Oh my gosh, is, to put my family first.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
And, I think with some people, you think if I'm ambitious, there's this choice between can I have it? I don't know why it's called having it all.
Yeah, none of us have it all.
We don't have
Zero.
it all,
No. Mm-mm.
right? And
I
so
don't
put
even
my
know what it
family
all is. What is the all?
I want to meet Riley. You know that thing, living the life of Riley? Like, I want to meet Riley because I want to know what was so exciting about Riley's life and the Joneses and having it all. All of these statements, and maybe those were Southern people just coming up with little statements. And we didn't realize these were, just little statements like bless your heart that were being made.
I do adore Bless Your Heart, I have to say. And you said it when we first got on today. It is one of my favorites. I don't use it enough. I use y'all, and I grew up in Michigan, and I think y'all is good for all of us. I don't think it matters where you live. Y'all is very helpful.
Absolutely, right? It's so inclusive.
It
When we
is,
start to talk about
right?
it, just and the same thing with mom and them, y'all, everybody, it just covers everything,
Yeah.
right? But
Yes.
it was one of those that thing of family. Put your family first. And no
Mhm.
matter what decisions that I've made in my career, which I've had a wonderful career, but my family, my children, my husband, they always stay at the forefront of that, whether I'm, right there next to them holding their hand or watching them accomplish something, or I'm 2,500 miles away and I get the news in a text, or
Mhm.
I get the news the next day because they fell asleep because they were tired and couldn't call me and tell me. Whatever it is, they are first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Was there ever a piece of advice that you were given that you give to others regularly?
Oh my goodness. I talked about this just the other day. John Pembroke, who was my
Mhm.
CEO when I was at Q's, he really helped me work through taking feedback and accepting things. And he used this because right, I had to learn that our amygdala and our brain is just set up to combat things, right? It's the defense mechanism.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you, right? It's just like these layers of the military. But
Mhm.
he used this book called that leverage bet, brag, worry, or wonder.
Oh, I love that.
And what I love about that is he made me explore my own self awareness before we went into our one on one.
Mm.
So it's like, yes, he had hard conversations with me, but
Mhm.
it's almost like he forced me to stumble upon the things I needed to hear myself.
I love that.
and triggered that conversation,
Mhm.
as opposed to, right, him meaning well in giving that feedback,
Yeah.
but not knowing if you were prepared for it. So I love how he took how I assessed that Brett bag of worry, and that's how he approached tough things with me, right? And I think those things develop self-awareness in me to a high degree, but it also helped me show up in work at work as who I wanted to be.
Mhm. I
Right?
love
So
that.
even the things that I would bet on myself, because I think I've taken huge bets on me, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to bet on you outside of you?
Yeah.
But I would feel, I don't know, overly ambitious. Oh, something about the bets. But he made me normalize it's okay to bet. It's okay to worry. And it was okay to to wonder, which we call curiosity. But
Yeah.
for me, those are the things that I wondered about. And just allowing me to explore them was amazing.
That's great. Is there a piece of advice you've received that you never will say to anyone else because it was just not right?
Um, mm, oh, that's a good one. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. You know,
Yeah.
hold on with that one, right? Because
Yes.
I look at, and I think even when I reflect on our relationships, and this is, I think, is a comfortable, safe space where we could have, right, some reflective conversations because you've led me. And
Mhm.
I told you, I've had times over, it's been like, what, 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. And I have times where I ask myself, what the Tansley Stearns are you doing, girl? Um, because I know where it came from, right? And you know that people have poured into you. But
Mhm.
what I learned from you that I didn't know early in my career was that you weren't expecting who Tansley was to be emulated by others. The expectation was for you to show up with your best self. And if you show up with your best self, then guess what? That's the best self that can do the work.
Mhm.
And it was, so that's why I always use imitation is not the best form of flattery, because as a leader, what I've learned is I don't need people to emulate me. Like, I think I'll tell, this is so funny. So this is our first day together. And I've probably said this to others, but I haven't said it to you. So now I'm going to tell you. So it was our first day together at Filene in that lovely office. And and we were working and you were training me and we were talking about what the job was going to be, and it was about noon and we had popcorn and Diet Coke. Okay, so I'm like, okay, we're just gonna keep hopping. We hopped on a call, we finished our popcorn and Diet Coke, we hopped on a call, and then about 2 o'clock I was like, oh my goodness, that popcorn and Diet Coke was lunch. Right? But You know, it took me a second to really come to the thought of you were doing you.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? I was in
Mhm.
your space that day, but I didn't communicate like, ma'am, you know,
I'm hungry, Tansley.
yeah, my motto is if it's not fried, it shouldn't have died. Like, I need a French fry or something, like but those are things that I look at. And, I feel like we learn that
Yeah.
to be a good leader, especially when you admire someone, you emulate them. And
Mhm.
I think that is probably without additional context, one of the most dangerous things you could ever say to someone. I
Yeah.
don't expect my daughter to emulate me.
Yeah.
I
Agree.
don't expect my son to emulate me. There are some habitual things that I do that I think are overly beneficial to successful people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they've got to find their way to deliver that.
Agree. Yeah. Yeah, and I love that example, Jimmy's, because it is so one, I do as a leader need to be better about making sure people have the water and food that they need. So I'm sorry and thank you. And so many people have that same story. Molly Bell has the same story. Our first trip together, we came to Michigan, and on the way to the airport, Molly Bell says to me, I'm worried about you. And I was like, what you talking about? She's like, you don't eat. You don't drink any water. You're not using the restroom enough. She's like, I don't, you're a camel. And what's interesting to me is there was a time in my career, to your point, where I was really trying to emulate others' behavior, right? I have a way in the world about how I wish to approach the way that I exercise and the way that I eat, and that is important to me. It may have some problems, and it's important to me. I felt for a lot of years that I had to do what everybody else did, right? Which is wherever I was, that whatever they were doing with food was something I had to do. And I love what you're saying, because I think there is a point in your career where, one, we all do need to use empathy, and certainly there is a set of social norms that matter. And being able to be who you are is a really big deal. I think because, at least for me, and I'd be curious what you think about this, my observation of myself is that I am a much better leader on the days where I am, as close to my full self. When you are spending energy trying to be others, trying to emulate, I don't show up as well as when I can be Tansley.
Well, it's hard, right? Because then you're looking for them for their approval. Like, do you see me doing like you? Did
Yeah.
you feel this? And that's not you.
Yes, that's right. Mm.
So that's when it continues to get muddled and hard, right? So on what day is it? Golly, Wednesday.
Mhm.
I went to lunch with Susan Delbene, who is a
Yeah.
congresswoman here from Washington. The Go West Association put it
That's
on.
so great.
And so Tinsley, like all the things happened, right? I showed up last. So
Yeah.
I ended up sitting like in this little booth, which put me like looking straight down the table and not sitting across from the table with everyone. So I sat with her staff.
Yeah.
Um, Golly, what all did I do? I dropped my chopsticks, right?
Mhm.
Like one of them fell under the table, just all these things, right?
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was I feel like I had this real engagement with her. Like
Mhm.
learn that she was from Selma. I made all the mistakes. I'm sitting next to one of her campaign fundraisers or managers, and we're laughing because she's like, Susan's probably going to think I did that, right? And it's all these things that I'm like, I'm so sorry you're sitting near me. But I showed up as me. And
Yeah.
what I have found is that the comfort that I have in you chose Jamise to work for you. You
Mm.
chose this woman who says, bless your heart, do what now? Or that's not my end of the donkey. Like those are just things that those are just things that they have no meaning at all, right? But they're just things I learned, and it's who I am. And when I try to muffle that communication, I stumble so bad and I hurt. I have this pain that I don't realize how much I influence.
Yeah.
And so I think I've used taken that emulation of others to tell people be comfortable being yourself because there's something that's going to benefit you in a production state that
Mm.
one day you'll thank me for. But it's not about you emulating me, it's about the best you showing up and
Yeah.
doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, I love that so much. Love that so much. Okay, last question. One piece of advice, young professionals who are working really hard to build their future. What's one thing that you would share that helped you to have the success that you have brought to life?
Oh my gosh, I didn't learn this until later, but if I can give this to someone, Viola Davis actually said this, and I love it, right? She said, if you have to choose between disappointing yourself and disappointing others, choose others every time.
Oh, that's great. I've not heard that. That's so good.
And, my son, going back to this, he was looking at getting a new job, right? Federal funding is going to be where it needs to be. And he's like, I'm so disappointed. I don't want to let my boss down.
Mm.
And I said to him, I said, son, this is what you need to say to your supervisor. We work for a federal grant program that could be eliminated. I'm young and I'm building my career. I need some stability. So
Mhm.
she's going to understand those things.
Oh,
But once I saw how I have set him up, right,
mhm.
to even where I've had to say, you're not disappointing me, right? So don't make decisions. I think this advice that I realized from a leader and parenting is the best you can say. If you can frame the words, don't disappoint you.
Mm,
I'll get over it.
yeah.
Right, but don't let you down because happiness is a solo. My daughter's a competitive dancer, right? And
Mhm.
I see so many people get on teams in competitive dance, but when it comes to that solo, they're hesitant, but
Mm,
not realizing we're living our lives doing a solo. No
mhm,
matter if you're married, you have children, oh, if you have seven brothers and sisters, which that would be a great thing. I'm an only child. I think we share that too,
me
right?
too. Mhm,
But your life is really a solo no matter what. So don't disappoint you.
mhm. That's so great. Mic drop, Jimese, mic drop. So great. Well, I'm really honored that you joined me. I hope you'll come back. There's so much
Yes.
more. So much more.
Yes, there's parenting adults is worth talking about, right? And even
Yes.
like what I've helped him with writing a resume. He got some feedback that I don't know who prepared you for this interview, but he asked questions like, "What would my onboarding look like?" Well,
It's so great.
how does a 22-year-old know what his onboarding will look
Oh,
like?
it's so great. Oh my gosh. All right, Jimese. Well, high five from all the way across the country. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure whenever you and I get to connect.
It sure is amazing.